Hi, everybody. Do you want to build a brand narrative and create an emotional connection with your target audience? If so, definitely stick around because my guest today will be sharing all about brand archetypes, which will help you to do just that. So welcome back everybody to my channel. If you're new here, we love to talk with people all about in and around marketing. And today I'm super excited to be able to be chatting with Amy Zander of Zedia Media. Amy is a self-proclaimed marketing mobstress running a full-service digital marketing agency that focuses on branding for really bold businesses. Using the brand archetype strategy, Zedia Media works with clients to build strong brands first and then amazing marketing second. Amy is the host of two podcasts, Brand Archetypes and Adventures in Business, and she recently published a book with co-author Kevin Scarrett, I may have pronounced that wrong, help me out when I'm done, titled Brand Archetypes for Your Business. Welcome, Amy. I'm sure I murdered that name. I'm so sorry.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen. This is so amazing. And it's Kevin Scarrett. You were very close, and he wouldn't be offended.
Scarrett,
he wouldn't be offended. So, yeah.
I'm so happy.
Yeah, he's good. So thank
Awesome.
you.
Well, we typically kick off each of our podcasts because I always think it's so fascinating to learn how someone got into the business they're in now. So please tell me about your business and how you got started.
I am happy to. So I have actually owned 5 businesses. I call myself a serial entrepreneur. I started in high school with a house cleaning business to save up for college. And then in college, I wrote papers and took tests and things for other students before that was actually a thing you could just buy on the internet. So, excuse me. So I did that, and then my husband and I ran a hunting and fishing lodge up north. We tried to open a brewery in 2008, which didn't happen because of the timing. And then I owned a cafe and a coffee shop for a couple years in the town I live in now. And that is kind of what brought me to ZD Media. So in all of these things I've ever done, I really loved the marketing, the networking, the talking about the business side of it rather than like the nitty-gritty day-to-day work. And when I had my coffee shop, it was down the street from the local Chamber of Commerce. And Kevin Scarrett, who you mentioned earlier, would come in there. He was in the chamber and he's a marketing professional. And he would come in there and get his coffee and we just would talk about marketing. And I always make this joke that I was really surprised he kept coming into my coffee shop because every time I would see him, I would just be like, okay, I've got this idea and this idea. And I would just pick his brain. And he was so generous with his time. And then when I decided to sell my coffee shop, I had a spur of the moment opportunity. Somebody offered to buy it and I was like, sure. And so he was like, well, what are you going to do now? And I'm like, well, I want to do what you do. I want to do marketing. And so he took me under his wing, introduced me to my first few clients, got me started, introduced me to the whole concept of brand archetypes. And we have been partners on that ever since. And he's really was instrumental in helping me grow my business. But I definitely found my niche. I mean, all those other endeavors I tried to do, marketing was the thing I was the best at and have the most fun with.
Awesome. That is, it's starting to be a little bit of a habit where people start in other areas and do multiple businesses for guests that have been on my show. So that's quite interesting, actually. For anyone unfamiliar out there, explain to us what brand archetype is and how it works.
Sure. So first I'll start off by defining what an archetype is. And an archetype is something that is a universally understood concept, is emotional based and powerful. So what that means is that if I were to say to you, like, what does a mother mean to you, the concept of a mother, and you were to give me some adjectives, usually be like comforting, supportive, nurturing. If I were to ask anybody on the planet, anywhere in any country, that same question, they would all have the same sort of answers. So that's what an archetype is because everybody understands it. So there are 12 main archetypes that have been defined over the years by people like Carl Jung and things like that. They didn't invent them. They just recognized that these exist and they put them into words and defined them. And so that concept is not new. Archetypes have been with us since the beginning of time in all cultures on earth. However, to use them in marketing and business is a newer concept over the last 20 or so years. And there are big businesses that are already doing this. So I like to use the example of Nike because Nike is a universal company. They sell shoes and apparel to everybody on earth, and they never make a brand mistake ever. And their archetype is the hero archetype. So everything they do in their marketing is fostering that feeling of heroism. Just get off the couch, just do it. Nike, I mean, their logo is the swoosh, the wing of the winged god Nike.
Yes.
That's part of being a hero. And if you see their advertisements, it's like athletes that are sweating and working out and doing it and being the heroes in their own lives. They never talk about customer service. They don't talk about the quality of the stitching of their shoes. They're not going to throw a bunch of stats at you. It's all they ever do is talk about being this hero. They're singly focused on that concept. So if you adopt an archetype, one of these 12 that are the main archetypes, there's lots of other ones too. You don't have to go with just these 12. But if you adopt one of those and focus your entire brand around that concept, then your brand is going to be powerful and consistent, which is hard. That's really hard for small businesses, that consistency. Because what a lot of small businesses do that, don't have a solid brand, or some people think their brand is their logo or their color or their tagline. And those are things that support your brand, but it's that emotional connection that you're making with your clients that is that a lot of people miss, that's actually what brand is. So like for Nike, it's that feeling like a hero. That's that emotion that they're going after in everything they do. So why I think it's really easy is that when you're a small business, you have to wear all these hats. You have to be your accountant and your marketing person and your salesperson and all those things. And marketing's hard. I mean, I do it every day and it's hard. And so if you have a focus, if you're sitting down and you're like, okay, I got to create this blog post, or I've got to do this Instagram post or this brochure or whatever, how am I going to do it? What tone am I going to use? What pictures am I going to use? And what happens is people do like a funny post here, and then they'll have a brochure that's got lots of stats, and then they'll do like a video that's kind of serious, and it's just like all over the place, right? Because we're just trying to figure it out because marketing's hard. And so what I help people do is figure out what their archetype is so that it's freeing. So once we're like, okay, let's just stick with hero. I'm going to be the hero archetype. So that's the only message you're ever putting out there. And so you can get rid of all that other stuff. And some people feel like that's limiting, but it's actually freeing when you really understand the concept and embrace it, because your message is always the same and you're very consistent. So that's it in a nutshell.
It would make social media in particular really, and sending emails, right, group like to all of your people, so much easier knowing exactly what your core is. And that you are so correct, and I have never thought of it like that.
And like I always, people say like, well, what's your goal with brand archetypes? And I'm always like, well, world domination, because I feel like all small businesses, even though there's so many great examples of really big businesses with huge ad budgets and stuff like that are doing this, anybody can do this. And it makes a lot more sense. And it takes this giant job of marketing down to this one question. And we kind of joke on our team, but so, if you're the hero, all you have to ask yourself is this hero enough? That's all you got to ask yourself with anything that you do. This blog post, this website, this whatever, is this hero enough? And the beauty of it is that because the archetypes are universally understood, we all already know what they are. So you can answer that. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. You don't have to be a marketing expert to even know that. You can look at a website, you can look at two different websites and say, oh, this one is hero and this one is mother based on these things. And you will already know that just instinctively. So you don't have to relearn anything, really.
That is so good. Okay, so I have a billion
shoot
in my head right now. So I took your quiz, which FYI, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but it is a gift that she's giving to us. And I came out, according to what I took, as an explorer. So how would being an explorer archetype help with marketing my business? Like, how would it help in maybe framing a social media host or something
Sure.
like that.
So there are two sides to the explorer archetype, and a lot of the archetypes have like sub archetypes or a couple different sides to them. And if you go to brandarchetypes.com, there's a page on each of the 12 archetypes, and it goes through all of that. But so for the explorer, the two different sides are, one is the more obvious physical exploration of the world, right? So you're out there hiking, biking, camping. If you think of things like the company Jeep, or Patagonia, or, maybe like mountain bikes, Cannon mountain bikes, something like that. Cannondale, I think they're called. So there's that. But then the other side of it is exploring an idea or a concept or an experience because you deserve it. So that would be like Starbucks is the explorer archetype. First of all, think about their logo. It's like a mermaid, so that's kind of already like in the world. Mermaids are out, exploring. Kind of take what you will with that. But if you go to Starbucks, you're going there for an experience. You're going to spend 3 times the money that you would spend down the street at McDonald's for a cup of coffee. But you're going in there for the free Wi-Fi, the smells, the barista, all the choices, the brushed metal countertops, like everything, right? That's an explorer archetype. You deserve that. You deserve that cup of coffee in that way, just exactly the way you like it, and you're going to pay a little bit more for it. And so
that's so
yeah,
cool.
right? And so like the flip side of that would be like either like McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts. So like Dunkin' Donuts is the neighbor archetype. That's another archetype. So you're going to go through the drive-through. I mean, I know they have like more coffee now, but typically they'd have like regular decaf.
Coffee,
the kid's got a paper hat on, whatever. You're on your way. It's not an experience. It's just a cheap cup of coffee, but it's good, right? So that's like the neighbor. Not saying neighbors are cheap. That was just the comparison to the.
No. I totally got that, though.
So that and so in your business for you, you are providing an experience like no other for what people want, because they deserve it. Like their photography deserves it, their special event deserves it, whatever you're doing. And you're going to be probably, not the cheapest, but not the most expensive necessarily, but you've got the experience and you're providing, basically that's it.
It's funny because I have 2 businesses, a wedding photographer, branding photographer, and my second business, which I started in 2018, is Pinterest marketing strategist business, and I'm doing people's Pinterest. What I noticed going from one, because so with my photography, it is the full experience, like you just said. And then with my Pinterest, I have traveled through everything that anybody could do with Pinterest, and I am fully knowledgeable to make sure that you get that full experience in terms of your business with Pinterest marketing, right? So it's funny how I feel like it is the same for both my businesses.
Yep.
So that is really interesting. How would you sort of deepen that for your business? How could I even go to the next level and dive in even deeper with that archetype? Is that making like an even better, like I'm constantly making my client experience better? And is that part of that archetype as well? Yeah,
the emotion that you're tapping into is they deserve it. Right. Mm-hmm. So your wedding deserves this amazing photography package. You're worth it. You're exploring something and doing something in a new and a unique way because you're worth it. So yeah, good. You deserve it. And that's that emotional hook, right? And so everything you do, not that you have to say you deserve it, like everything you're doing. But get really creative in giving that feeling of that. Yeah, and you're going to experience something in a way that you've never experienced it before.
So now of course I did a deep dive in brand archetypes, which I know nothing about, but of course I did a deep dive in it. And I noticed that some people who are in it will tend to mix or blend archetypes. Is this something that you recommend? Why or why not? And what would that be? How would that look?
Sure. So I get asked that question a lot, especially when I'm going through the process of helping somebody discover their brand archetype. And a lot of times people be trying to like choose between a couple, and they're like, well, can it be 2? So the answer is like, no, but yeah. So it's
especially if they're neighbor archetypes, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things to think of too. Like there's three kind of energy levels to archetypes. So there's the ones that have really high energy. So that would be your hero, your jester, your outlaw. They're a little bit like higher energy. Then there's like kind of the middle of the road ones, the neighbor, the explorer. And then there's the ones at the bottom that don't have hardly any energy. They're just real low energy. And so it'd be really hard to combine two of them that are like high and low. That would be hard, right? So we talk about energy level. And the other thing is you can like combine two archetypes to create a new one, right? That's always an option. So I had a client that was trying to differentiate between the neighbor and the hero, right? That's actually very common, the hero and the neighbor. And she was a business coach for predominantly women, and she wanted women to feel like heroes in their lives, right? So she kind of took those two concepts and she was like, why? I really just want people, all these women, to feel like Wonder Woman in their own life. And I was like, well, Wonder Woman is an archetype, and so she went with that. And so she blended it a little bit. So the other part is having a dominant archetype and a sub archetype. And that happens a lot too. And a lot of times, sometimes that might be the sub archetype might be the jester, because people want to have a little humor in their marketing. So that's fairly easy to do if you're a funny person and you can keep that going. It's hard being the jester, like that, the jester as your main archetype is not, it's not for everyone. Yeah. Kevin, my co-partner in this, is 100 all day long, the jester, king of bad dad jokes. Everything that comes out of his mouth is hilarious. And it is, to me, that is super exhausting. I can be funny sometimes, but not all the time. So, but what you don't want to do if you have a dominant and a sub archetype is ever flip flop them, right? Because then you're not consistent. Then
you're merging your
right,
thinking.
Yeah. And there's different ways to do that. There's some that are easier to do that with others. And if somebody, if I'm working with a client and they're, trying to go between two, we'll have that conversation about the specific archetypes they're considering. But I've seen it done really well in a lot of ways. So. Yeah.
So like when I took the quiz, so I was an explorer with 37 and a jester with 35. So they were like super close together. Yeah. I didn't read the jester because I didn't want to go off on a tangent and try to pick and choose. Right. But I feel like explorer really fits me. If we're taking this test, should we go and look at the jester? I mean, obviously, besides working with you and having an expert explain it and help you, would you read the jester and then see if it's between the two, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the quiz is just supposed to be like a starting point. A lot of times, a lot of times I'll have, a conversation like you and I are having right now, introducing the concept of the archetypes, and then say, okay, hey, go take this quiz and see what happens. And usually you have the 3 or 4 ones at the top. The numbers are very close together, maybe even tied. And then it and they're usually grouped by energy level too, just because we are who we are. And so that's usually just the starting point. Some people take it and they're like, yep, that makes sense. That's me. Putting my flag in the sand. I'm an explorer or whatever, and other people are like, oh, that's really interesting, but I'm not really sure. And so, we'll start talking about other ones. So if I'm working with a solopreneur, usually what I do is I recommend that they have 2 or 3 other people in their life take the quiz also on their behalf. Like it could be a spouse, a best, like a spouse, a best friend, a client, whoever, somebody who really knows a lot about your business and who can answer those questions thinking about your business. Because it's fun to get other people's opinions and also not work in a vacuum, right? Because other people see our business as different than we do too. And so, or if it's a business where there's a group of people, say there's like the marketing team or the C-suite or whatever, I'll have them all first take the quiz separately and I'll put them in a document that compares them. And then the second step was what we call a brand discovery session. So it takes about 90 minutes. You can do it Zoom, in person, whatever. And it's this really, I like to call, magical brainstorming session where we go through different aspects of your business, like your culture, your clients, your industry, where you want to be in the future, just all kinds of things. We throw so many words up on the board and then we color code them and categorize them and move them around and do all these really cool things. And at the end, the archetype usually reveals itself. It's usually very obvious at that point. It's very exciting. It's very cool. Sometimes, again, it's still between a couple and we have that conversation. And then the group decides together, which is very cool. It's fun. It's a good group team building experience, but it puts everybody on the same page, which is really good. And it fosters a lot of really cool discussions. So that is like my favorite thing to do in my business is those brand discovery sessions, because there's so many cool aha moments. Plus I love words, so I get to use lots of words. And so that's really exciting. So it just kind of depends on the person. I mean, some people are very good, very quick decision makers, and they know, and they're like, yep, that's what I'm going to be. And then most likely though, people need that second step.
Well, I mean, you started off by saying for explorers that, hiking and being outdoors and all that stuff. And I'm like, well, that's not me. That's my whole family, but not me. I mean, I do it to be with them. But then when you flipped it and we're talking about the, that client experience and going to the ends of the earth for them, that kind of thing, I was like, oh, that is 100% me. So I can see where working with a brand archetype specialist would really help in this way, and not just sort of pinpoint the words that were given to you in a quiz, but actually be able to fully understand what they are. Right.
Yeah, I agree. And then once you figure out your archetype, the second step, which kind of takes longer, it's usually like a 3 to 6 month process. Then what we do is we start going through everything that you have. Usually we start with your website and your social media channels, and we're like, okay, back to that question, is this explorer enough? How can we make this more explorer? And, very rarely am I ever going to get anyone to like change the name of their business, right? Because your business has been in existence. You have, brand equity in that and all that kind of stuff. I had a client that they were financial advisors, and their name was 3 people's last names. It sounded like a law firm, right? Like Smith, Smith, and Smith. And they chose and they chose the neighbor archetype. And I'm like, well, your name's not very neighborly. Like, it's not very friendly. Like, it's kind of hard to remember and whatever. They're like, we're not changing our name. And I'm like, okay, cool. So let's create a really friendly tagline, and let's do some other things that we can kind of, bring it back into alignment. And then we went through all the content on their website. We friendlied it up, neighbored it up and all that kind of stuff. And we tweaked their color palette just a little bit. And now, spent about a year, and things are really rolling with them. And it's great because we have marketing meetings, and there's like the one guy that's the accountant, and he's like, but I don't know, is that on brand? And I'm like, yes, like he's always thinking about it, even though he's
that's so and it's not the typical position that would think about that. So that's pretty funny.
Yeah. So it's great. Exciting. And we have what we call word banks on our site. So if you adapt the Explorer archetype, then we have these pages and pages and pages of words and phrases and stuff that are all Explorer words that we've curated
to use in and out.
Just start peppering your content. That's the easiest way to start, you bringing it into alignment with your archetype, is just start peppering your content with these words and start saying that. How can I say this a little bit more Explorer? How can I get that emotion that I'm trying to go with a little bit more, coming through a little bit more? And it doesn't happen overnight. And that's why we say it usually takes about a 3 to 6 month process, because I don't want to.
You're not going to spend 100% of your time updating everything.
Yeah. And
you got to work with clients and whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's really exciting. That's fun for me. And it just gives people a lot of relief and a lot of sense of like purpose in their marketing. They have a focus, and they can feel better about it.
And then would you use brand archetypes to sort of determine your ideal client and to help you in choosing kind of who you work with or who you work best with?
So that's a really good question. And I'm going to answer it first by answering a different question. It'll help lay the groundwork. So first off, a lot of people will come to me and they'll say, okay, I'm this kind of business in this kind of industry. What archetype should I be? They'll ask me. And again, my answer, because I'm kind of a jerk, I'm not going to tell you what archetype you should be, right? But I will lead you through the process. And so the only advice I really ever give somebody is some archetypes maybe they don't want to be. So there are certain industries that gravitate towards certain archetypes. So like the health industry, for example, gravitates towards the mother archetype a lot. Makes sense. Nurturing, caring, nurses, doctors, physical therapists, things like that you want to be taken care of. So if you were a new, say, physical therapy office moving into a town and you were starting your branding and you came to me, I would say, well, you can pick anything but the mother. Just don't pick the mother, because everybody's the mother, right? You want to stand out.
Be something different.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they could still do it if they wanted to. Fine. But I mean, that would be the advice that I would give them. And that's a little bit counterintuitive to people who, when they first start out, they're like, well, but it just makes sense. So you don't pick your archetype based on your clients. You pick your archetype based on you and your business and your culture and your values and that emotional connection that you want to put forward. And you will attract the clients that are the best fit for you because they will be attracted by that message.
Oh,
so yeah,
that makes so much more sense.
So I mean, you can still go through those marketing exercises where you create the personas of your ideal clients and things like that, and that's still valid and that still works and that's still a great exercise. But it's like, here's an example. So let's take two bicycle companies. One is the Explorer and one is the Mother. So the Mother bicycle company is going to use marketing like pictures of families going down a lane, making memories, having a picnic, little tassels and helmets. And they might have like a family rate or, that kind of thing. Or like, come get your bike fixed every month for free, safety, and all that. And that's great. And they're selling bikes. And then we have the Explorer bicycle over here, which is going to be like mountain biking and mud on your tires and exploring the world and GoPros and like all that kind of stuff. But they're selling the exact same thing. They're selling bikes. And so some people are going to go to the one where they want the family kind of experience, and other people are going to go to the one where they want the mud on the tires mountain biking experience. But they can get bikes at either shop. So it's just your archetype is for
it's which one they're drawn to.
Yeah. And your archetype is for you. It's for you and your business and that emotional connection. And remember, what's really hard to remember when you're first starting out is that not every client is for you, right? And you're not for every client, and that's okay. And so...
yeah, you want to attract or repel.
Right.
That's really important.
Right.
Most people I don't want to repel anybody. Yes,
right,
you do.
Right.
You don't want to work with everyone. There's people that you will not work well with, period.
Right.
Very good. Very good. Okay, so now let me pick your brain a little bit outside of archetypes. So I normally ask all my guests, besides Marketing Strategy Academy podcast, what are some of your favorite podcasts? But since you do have podcasts, tell me about your podcast.
Okay, so I have the Brand Archetype podcast that Kevin and I have been doing for a couple years. Truth be told, I'm going to be honest with everybody. It's more of a hobby. We are not like, we're a little bit loosey-goosey with our schedule. We'll do like a whole bunch of awesome episodes in a row, and then we'll take a few weeks off, and then we'll have some more in a row. So if you follow it, please follow it. Just know that we're not super consistent, but we do put out really good info. We talk a lot about the archetypes, different archetypes. We also talk about different rebrands that happen in the world. Like when Rite Aid went through a rebrand last year, we talked about how we thought about that and if it was good or bad. And then at the end, we have what we call a marketing mayhem spots, where we basically make fun of a really, really bad ad. So
that's
yeah. And that's my TikTok channel too. That's all I do on my TikTok channel is make fun of stupid ads. But yeah, so
I am totally going to go follow up.
Yeah. So that would be Zedia Media. I do that on Zedia Media. Yeah. And so that one's really fun. And then the other podcast that I have is a little bit more localized to Lansing, Michigan, where I live. It's called Adventures in Business, and I have a co-host, Lisa, that business coach I was actually mentioned earlier with the Superwoman. And her and I we interview business owners, hustlers, people in the grind, just about what they're doing. We just give them 30 minutes to, kind of tell everybody what they're doing and what kind of business they want and just promote themselves. So that's really fun too.
Very cool. Of course, anything we talk about, I'm going to include in the show notes. So for everyone listening, you don't have to try to grab a piece of paper and pencil right now. What are 3 things that have helped you grow your business? These could be tools, advice, what have you.
Sure. So people, for sure, like knowing the right people, networking in my team, and reaching out to people that know more than I do when I don't know something, for sure. So yeah. That's really helped me. Having a business coach has really helped me. Because being a business owner is hard and it's lonely, and
you're by yourself. Yeah.
So that's been really happy. And time blocking has saved my life.
My favorite one. That is my favorite one, and I would be lost I could not run 2 businesses without it, for sure.
Yeah.
That's a great one. Those are great, great, great pieces of advice. Okay, and last, Amy has brought us a gift today. She has a free questionnaire on her site. It's step 1 to discovering your brand archetype. It is great. It's how I found out a bunch of the information that for these questions that I was asking her today. And I just really want to thank you so much for your valuable advice and your time today, because time is money. So we do appreciate you taking time out to visit with us and give us your knowledge on brand archetypes. What is the best way to get into contact with you in case anyone wants to take this conversation further?
Sure. You can go to brandarchetypes.com and get a hold of us that way. It's kind of weird. I have 2 websites. So there's that one, and then there's zediamedia.com, which I know you said you put the links in the show notes. So either one of those, or amy@zediamedia.com is my email. And yeah, and I love and geek out on brand all the time. And I talk, like, when I say call me, talk to me, get a hold of me, ask me your questions, like, I mean it. I really mean it. Like, I geek out on this stuff all the time. And when I say world domination, like, I mean it. Like, I want every business to have the opportunity to make their marketing easier.
And that's me. I want every single business to be using Pinterest.
Right.
So I get your world domination, because it is in my nature. Yeah. And then finally, tell us a little bit about the different services that you offer, so that if anyone listening today wants to contact you, they can, to go ahead and take this further.
Sure. Thank you. So we have the branding, what we've talked about, the whole brand archetypes, helping you figure that out. And then we do small websites, logos. We're like a full service digital agency. We do social media marketing as a bulk of what we do for people. And then we also produce podcasts for several clients.
Very nice. Love it. Love it. Love it. So I always close every podcast. So if you've listened to this before, you can go ahead and skip to the end and listen to the next one. But I find it very, very important when you listen to a podcast, when you watch a YouTube video, when you're in a class of some sort learning something, make sure that you're writing down at least one thing that you're going to take action on, because you can listen and get educated everywhere all the time, but if you're not actually putting it into practice, you are not going to be growing your business. So make sure that you do something good for your business today, and at least check out Amy's brand archetype questionnaire, which will be in the show notes, and any other thing that you've written down during this time. Thank you again. I really appreciate your time, Amy. Thank you.